one of the things that's really going to happen in this next year is that our situations, our personal situations, the things that we're worrying about right now are going to change. The things that we were stressing over, the things that we were putting all of our energy towards, the things that were actually causing us the need to, focus and apply to make some actionable changes in our lives, those conditions and those situations are actually changing. That's what happens when planets change signs. So Saturn in Pisces will bring a whole different set of problems, different set of things that are calling for our awareness. This is in our own personal lives, but it's also in the collective as well. So it's the overall theme of Saturn in Pisces is our ethics and our morals and the ways that we're living in integrity with our lives. And we've had Jupiter in Pisces this past year, which is not the same as Saturn in Pisces, which will be next year. But the bridging point between this transition is that Saturn is going to really highlight the ways that we're not living in integrity. And there's so much that is not integral at this time. There are so many ways that we're not living in relation to the earth. We're not living in relation to the way that we are engaging with resource and extraction, and the ways that we treat each other. We're not integral in those ways of relating. And those things are going to show up. And it's not just emotional, it's literally like who receives care, right? Like there's already a crisis happening with the systems of the medical system and hospitals. So can you imagine when Saturn moves into Pisces and it becomes an actual issue? What happens when there is mass illness and then there is not an infrastructure to support that? These are very real things that if you're actually tuned into the news, if you're tuned into what's happening with COVID and just illness in general and long COVID, that you can actually start to feel and perceive that when Saturn actually moves into Pisces, which is an indication of illness and health, you can see how that's going to really tip the scale. And so, it's not a prediction. I mean, it is, but it's data. Like to me, it's data, but it's because I'm just like a fucking wacky astrologer. But it makes sense when you think about what is already happening. It's like these symbols, these archetypes are simply just mirrors to what is already present in our paradigm. And it's it's depressing, but what can we do? I mean, we work on our immunity. We work on the ways that we engage in care. We work on the ways that we're actually living in integrity, because that's what's really going to shine through when Saturn moves into Pisces. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. It feels a bit sad, but I also think that it's kind of that point of pushing through and having to engage faith even when we are not exactly sure how to find it. And that is actually one of the magical aspects of Saturn in Pisces, is developing unshakable faith. I've been hosting these prayer groups for the past 2 solid years. It'll be the 5th spiritual warrior training in January next month. And it's like, to me, Saturn in Pisces is kind of the reason why we have been engaged with our tarot cards, engaged with the esoteric, engaged with astrology, engaged with understanding consciousness. Like, this is a challenge point. This is the point where, on a collective level, some of these ways of engaging our thinking spiritually, they might fall short. They might not feel like, how is my tarot cards going to help me when there's actually many, many people that are sick? And that's a real thing. You know, do your tarot cards help you during apocalyptic times? You know, maybe they can. Does astrology support the process of, you know, what happens when we feel extreme desolation? But I also think that this is where we develop stronger spiritual practices that are actually a lot more attuned to what is happening in the world. That they're functions that actually serve rather than them being ornamental. And I think that that's also something that's going to come up with Saturn and Pisces is you know, I've experienced Saturn transits where I literally, you know, Saturn to Jupiter specifically, where I literally have no desire to engage my meditation. I have no desire to engage my spiritual life, my spiritual practice, which is fundamental to who I am. And it's like you have to find that internal meter, the compass that we work so hard to develop. And you know, that's the whole bridge between Jupiter and Pisces that we've been developing this year, that Jupiter is in the very last degree of Pisces right now. And that bridge when Saturn actually enters Pisces in March of 2023. So, you know, there's so much that will be challenged. And there's so much of that musculature, that spiritual musculature that is necessary in times of extreme desolation and desperation and depression. You know, not trying to sound like a fearmonger, but it's like, you know, we're in very prolific times that are not, you know, there's no need to sugarcoat things at this point anymore. I don't feel that urge. I don't feel that urge to always find the most beautiful thing to say. Like, that's stupid to me. Because I think that, like I said before, like the truth is healing. And there are ways that we engage the truth that are also liberating. And there are also ways that we engage the truth that can also be continually keeping us confined. But at the same time, like we also have to be like in really, really deep connection to our reality as well. And this is all channel of Saturn and Pisces. Like this is all what is, at least for me, the way that I interpret it, the way that I'm feeling into it. And I hope that our spiritual practices can live up to this. I hope that our tarot cards, and I hope that the ways that we engage all of the spiritual like expression that's been developing since Neptune and Pisces ingress in 2012, like this is a point in time where the Saturn now is going to challenge those ideals. So yeah, there's some corny shit that I see on Instagram all the time. There's corny shit, the ways that people talk about astrology and tarot, which I have judgments and I don't give a shit. But those things are gonna come under fire when Saturn enters Pisces. And I just, you know, like I just watch, just pay attention and see how that happens. Because, you know, I've been through, well, I guess my Saturn return is kind of interesting because my Saturn return encompassed my, you know, Saturn in Sagittarius, which is not exactly the same, but it's a little similar to Saturn in Pisces, but it was naturally square to my natal Jupiter. So my Saturn return actually was about faith. It was about finding faith even in those spaces where I absolutely did not have it. And it took everything in me to maintain faith, to not throw it all away, to just kind of like go into the K-hole of depression. And it's easy to do that, you know, when Saturn and Jupiter come in contact, you know, especially by hard aspect. Satori Kitty Cat says, I see a lot of people talking a load of crap, but lacking action behind it. exhausting. It's exhausting to see that. It's exhausting to see the ways that spirituality is just extremely toxified, the way that it is framed, and yeah, it just makes me tired. It makes me tired. It will be interesting to see what comes up as a Pisces rising. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where the month of March, because there's so much change that happens at that time, it's like we wait and see, we watch and see. Yeah, I think that just this period of time between like December and March is fortification. You know, I think that there's a lot of the fortification that we need to start to really check ourselves. You know, like what is integral? What is integral with the way that you're engaging your spiritual practices? And how can that be a lot more honest? How can the actions be a lot more honest with, you know, what we actually believe in? It's hard right now. It's hard right now because of the exhaustion and the extreme disconnection that we can also feel as well. Trisha says, I see people questioning what they have known and accepted and being more open to change and deviation from what was once the norm. Oh, yes, I love this. Okay, so I'm going to just repeat this really quickly because I think this is super important. I see people questioning what they have known and accepted and being more open to change and deviation from what was the norm. Yes, I think that this is also another way of looking at it too. You know, I think people's belief systems are going to be extremely challenged. They already have been, you know, these past few years, but I think that there's more developing with the ingress of Saturn and Pisces that's going to really push it further. It's going to push further the ways that we actually see, you know, our position, our disposition, and how we relate to our world, how we relate to what is actually right and wrong. Yeah. There's a lot of sheep, you know, there's a lot of sheep mentality where, you know, it's like we probably, you know, let's say that like maybe at some point, like at 2020, the start of 2020, there was like 75% of us believed what the CDC had to say about anything medical, anything regarding our health. And then over time, in these past 3 years, it's dwindled, right? It's like, I would hope that only like 10% of the population believe the CDC at this point. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that fractal of like how people are really believing these overarching structures that are supposed to be helping, supporting, protecting us, protecting our well-being, that like there's no ability for us to even feel that safety right now. But I think that this is just, you know, like I said, it's a fractal of how people are actually starting to see their world, their worldview. You know, you look at climate change and it immediately strikes a whole different chord in how you're relating to what is the importance of life, you know? And so it'll be really interesting to see how there's a lot of waking up. You know, I think that that's also the beauty that can happen in this next period of time, is like the immense like waking up. Like it's for those of us that are already, you know, earth keepers and wanting to really come back to the old ways. You know, this is things that we have seen and thought about, especially when it comes to thinking about just what our elders have to say. And then there's also like this whole other side of it where people really are waking up. And I think that that is really exciting. And with Saturn and Pisces, it can just feel a little bit, it's like, oh my God, like where can we find the hope? Where can we find the magic? But yeah, we just have to continue to light those candles for ourselves, light those candles for each other. Like deep prayers. It's kind of like what it feels like with Saturn and Pisces is like those prayers that we've really been, laying down, and like we've been on our knees for these past few years. It seems like there's gonna be a need for them to become a lot louder, or that we might even see how more is necessary. And so, yeah, it's big. It's really big. For those of you just joining, I've been ranting about Saturn and Pisces, how that ingress in March will create a whole different realm of circumstances, that your situations and the things that you're worrying about for these past few years, like those conditions and those situations will be changing. And also how the external and the social is also going to influence those influences, influence those situations and those things that we're actually starting to place our attention towards. And that's just kind of the nature of when planets change signs. The situations and the occurrences, focuses start to change and shift. Today, the 18th of December, 2022, the sun is aligned with the galactic center. At this moment, the moon is sextile to the sun, and the moon will then square Pluto in the next hour or two. So very, very eventful period of time. Usually when there's a lot of aspects in the sky, there's just movement, there's activity, your text messages are more active, you actually start to see things that are going to provoke events, and that's kind of the magic of astrology and the magic of timing. So because there's so much activity right now and the sun is very aligned to a mystical, mysterious place in the sky, the center of our galaxy, I just felt the need to come on. And it has become a very long rant about Saturn and Pisces and a lot of information. I shared a lot of my actual feelings. I just have less and less patience these days to be pleasant. I have less patience to be pleasant with what I say. I have less patience to be meek in the ways that I see things astrologically, and I don't want to sugarcoat ever. And also I have, like I said before, like I have no problem being right and I have no problem being wrong. I know that there's always places in between that, but I think in my practice now, I just feel just really empowered to just be truthful. In the time that we're in, fuck that. Like there's no reason why the information that I share should be limited to be pleasant, because it could be offensive, or that it could hurt someone, or it can make someone feel bad. It's like, no, we're in times of crisis. Truth is deeply healing, and the way that you engage with truth, whether it is confining or liberating, that's your problem. The way that I share it is also, that's my job to be neutral in a lot of ways. And it's also my job to show where the opportunity is. But I also am just like being very real about things feels a lot more satisfactory to me at this point. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Happy to open up space for anyone that has anything they want to share, anything that they feel is on their heart, is on their mind. That's kind of the way that my lives go. It really, really starts to open up the conversation in ways that there's just a collective feeling. I know that these things just, I was called to come on, and I know that this is going to be helpful and healing. I know this is going to be supportive. I know that this message is going to reverberate out somewhere. So I'm feeling this galactic center. This is a vibe. This is a vibe. So yeah, I'm glad that I came on because the energy is palpable. Let's see. River Flowing says, looking at my patterns with compassion and neutrality lately. Oh, I love that. That is the major vibe. That is the major energy. Compassion and neutrality probably are the two most important things in healing. Yeah. If you really, really want to heal, especially the mind, like if you want to heal the mind, you have to have compassion and neutrality, but also the heart, because it's like, I guess for me, the thing that I always come back to, studying different things, is just that primary Buddhist philosophy, that Buddhist philosophy around the heart and just being compassionate, but also, relatively unattached to the result. It's pretty hard, but yeah, it's a goodie. It's the thing that is always deeply supportive and grounding for me. Yes, thank you all for joining. For those of you joining, just talking about 2023. That's all. It's been a little rant on Saturn and Pisces, and talking about the galactic center. Trisha is saying, questioning everything I've known lately, lots of inertia to pivot, exhilarating but very scary. Yeah. Questioning I've ever known, everything I've ever known. Sounds like a spiritual awakening. That's usually what happens. And yeah, it's interesting, like we can have those existential moments of like questioning everything we've ever known, and then sometimes it's like we are literally sitting in bed and it's like it's almost like too much to have to question everything, because on the other side of that, if you were to really engage those questions and to engage the answers of those questions and to find those answers, and then also to live those answers, which would be like the utmost, like it's a critical moment when we decide to live those answers. It's extremely destructive. And lately, this week, I've really been dropping into this realization, this revelation for myself, where I'm like, wow, I guess I'm a mystic. And I don't like a lot of terms. I don't like a lot of terms to describe myself. Like I'm an astrologer because that's just a primary tool of how I engage. I just consider myself an artist. But realizing that I am a mystic, and the reason for that is because it's like I want to experience the divine. I want to have those experiences of utmost connection, and I have those experiences of touching and tasting and being with the divine, and the madness that comes with that, and the insanity that can come with that, and the difficulty in maintaining humanness when we have tasted the divine. And it's like when we are having those moments of questioning everything, when we're having those moments where we're like, what part of my life is a lie? Like, what part of my life is being lived inauthentically? What part of my life is a shell? of what I should be doing, a shell of what I want to be actually doing, a shell of something that I don't even know what's on the inside of. Like I said, it's extremely destructive, because once you engage living truthfully, it will affect your relationships. It will affect your ability to be in those same spaces. It will affect your ability to do the same things that you normally did. That, like, going shopping on a shopping spree is not going to be attractive anymore. So what are you going to do with your time? The ways that you used to spend your time and your money and all of your relations will change. And like what you said, Trisha, like, it can be fun. Like, it is fun to engage the thought, and it's fun to start to rearrange ourselves in ways that are safe. But for me, in my path as a mystic, realizing that that's my path, because it's those spiritual experiences that I've had that have ultimately changed me, and that have ultimately made it so that there is a way that I'm relating to life that I can no longer go back. I can no longer go back to the things that I used to find were funny. I can no longer go back to the things that I used to come to for solace. I can no longer go back to even a lot of my familial relationships, because they are not, they're not in integrity with my heart and my spirit and my path. And the mystic is a very dramatized version of what it means to start to question your reality. Because I think that, and this is not the same for everyone, but there are ways that in the beginning of that spiritual inquiry, where there's so much disruption that there is a destructive quality, and the ways that we balance and navigate that are a lot more related to how you can really mitigate truth in your heart and then truth of other people's truth. Sometimes, in order to really mitigate that, there is boundary blockage and cutting of cords that needs to occur, and that is destructive, and that is not always recommended. But in the beginning, we might not have the language, we don't know the difference, so it can look like, get the fuck away from me. And I feel like for me, sometimes it's easier to be that way. But that's destructive, and it actually is not part of the paradigm that we're in, where repair and learning how to work with others and being in community with others, being in those spaces of collective healing, is what's necessary for us to kind of step into a more appropriate paradigm that is anti-capitalist. But it's just really interesting, because I was thinking about, like, going back to what I was saying, it's like this path of the mystic. It's like there's so much that you trade. There's so much that you trade for insight. There's so much about, like, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself, like, there's so much about learning astrology, learning this divine knowledge, and it kind of, like, just, it's really hard to unsee things the way that I used to see them before, when I was just not as, like, where I hadn't given myself, like, I've given myself to this practice. I've given myself to this pursuit of the esoteric. And that is, to me, like, that is a mystic path. And it's been very difficult for me to find the ways to hold my own humanness in this process. So I'm just being really honest. So sometimes we're in bed thinking about, oh my God, what parts of my life are inauthentic? What parts of my life am I not living truthfully? And I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna close my eyes. We're gonna go to sushi, have a drink, and go shopping as if I've never even thought about this at all. Close the door. And that's one spectrum. What's one end of the spectrum? And then there's, like, the deep end, right? Where you're just kind of like, giving your entire life to astrology and like I can't go to dinner with other people. I don't even eat anything that resembles restaurant food. I can't go shopping because I don't believe in blah 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 blah. Like I can't watch the same things that people watch. Like I just don't relate. And being human is somewhere in between. You know, that's the beauty of it. That the being in our humanness is somewhere in between the perfection of God and the messiness of watching fucking reality TV. But it's, you know, it's just integral, you know, like integrity and truth is adaptable. Those are things that change as necessary. You know, there are moments when we live as a saint, and there are other moments where we're just at a fucking dirty rave, getting shit-faced. And like, those are all holy experiences, legitimately. But, you know, going back, getting off this tangent and going back to what Trisha was saying earlier about just really starting to think about life in a way that is more, we're asking those really hard questions. We're asking those questions that are burning inside of our heart. How can I make my life a reflection of those burning questions? Like, it's a good time for that. I think that Saturn in Pisces is really going to push that forward. And it's going to be hard for people that haven't thought of this. You know, if you have not engaged that process, it's going to be really hard. Especially if you want to be in the delusion, if you want to be in the lie of disengagement from what's actually happening in the world outside of you, it will be unavoidable to maintain the bubble. I really don't think that Saturn in Pisces is going to allow us to be blind by our own delusion of money and extraction of resource. It's just not the energy. It's not the energy. And for those of us that are tender in the heart, that are you know, wanting to be an earth keeper, the water keepers, the people that are defenders of the sacred. It's like, yeah, it's just time. It's time for us to, you know, continue to work and continue those prayers, because you know, I was talking about it before and earlier in the live, that just there's so much stark reality that is going to be coming when Saturn comes into Pisces, and it's not a apocalyptic prediction. We're looking at world events that are all very relevant right now: impending war, just the flaunting of missiles, the flaunting of atomic weapons, economic and natural crises that are kind of impending as well, that are happening, impending, whatever. So you take the archetype of Saturn moving into Pisces and you look at things that bind us together as a collective, and the focus and the need for that to be looked at with a much more discerning eye, for us to utilize our ability to apply energy, attention, repair, structural support to these places. So the waters, the environment that is the connective thread that holds us together, our health, the systems of health, the systems of care. All of these things are representative of Saturn, or in the sign of Pisces. I can't believe this is free content. This is just astrology. This is astrology. I'm speaking astrologically. Yeah. This content is brought to you by the Galactic Center. I'm glad I came on. Yeah. Powerful times that we're in. So we care for each other and we build our immunity. We take care of our health, take care of our hearts. Saturn in Pisces. Very, very profound with everything that we're already experiencing right now. Open for any comments, any questions, anything that is dwelling, anything that's deeply resonating in your heart space, anything that's on your mind is all welcome in this space, and it will be well received. These lives are places where just our collective energy is just so alive and prominent, and yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, just like lazy and I don't know. I was like, I don't know when I should talk about this. I should though. I think there's going to be some really cool art that also develops with Saturn in Pisces as well. I guess I'll take this opportunity to talk about the spiritual warrior training that's coming up in January, and it starts on January 2. This one's going to be really fun. I'm super excited about this one. This will be the 5th spiritual warrior training that I've hosted, and the spiritual warrior training is this one's 4 weeks, so Monday through Friday, prayer, meditation, 8 a.m. Pacific for an hour, and it just gets your spiritual musculature in check. It helps you feel aligned, vibrant, feeling connected, centered. It's all done through your own effort and consistency. It's really good for setting up spiritual practice. This particular spiritual warrior training is not going to be as like lovey, like, you know, tender, like it's still spiritual, but we're going to be utilizing physical practice as a vehicle for spiritual connection, developing the physical body as a way to maintain both physical and spiritual connection. And this is different from any of my other practices because we're literally going to be doing squats. We're literally going to be working on our physical bodies. And this is a way to usher in Mars stationing direct. This is a way to step out of the Mercury retrograde that will already be happening. This is really going to push you forward with that beginning of the year. And it's a good time. This is going to be a good time. It's going to be fun. It's going to be lighter. Whereas I feel that spiritual warrior training oftentimes is very heart-centering and very profound in the way that you develop spiritually and the way that you maintain your spiritual connection. But this one is going to be a lot more like we're going to do that, but also we're going to get a little booty by doing squats every day. We're going to like strengthen our upper body and like get kind of like sexy as well. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it really aligns with the energy as Jupiter will have just moved back into Aries. And there's just a general feeling of more vibrancy, more vitality. And I think that being able to practice with it is really going to allow us to fortify, and we're going to be doing a lot of our own personal, I hate the word manifestation, but like the manifestation energy is very strong with this one. So if you're interested in joining that container, I recommend. I feel like spiritual warrior training has been, I guess, one of my most consistently popular classes, mainly because like it's astrological, but it's more experiential, and it's not particularly like, the practice is not specifically learning astrology. Like you learn about your birth chart, you learn about a lot of stuff. Like it's a really good course. It's a really good program. Like I'm actually really proud of it because it feels very aligned to my energy. It feels very aligned to the way I actually engage my spiritual practice. So if you're really wanting to like develop your own spiritual practice, develop yourself spiritually, develop an ability to be in that, that centered, heart-centered, potent position in your life, like that's kind of really what this particular container is going to bring, which I'm really excited for. So yeah, just throwing that out there. It's going to be a whole good vibe. Additionally, what else? Astrology for business development and success. Astrology for successful business timing and development. That's going to be a dope class. That one starts first week of January as well. It's 4 classes. We meet every week. And that one, we're really going to be learning how to forecast our success for, short term, long term. And also what's great about this particular course is you learn how to post at the appropriate time. So when it comes to, I see this all the time where someone will have a pretty good post on their social media and they just didn't post at the right time. And I'm just like, yeah, kind of fuck that up. And not in a way where it's like I'm being judgmental, but when you study astrological timing, cosmic timing, there is actually a right time to do things, and there is a time where the yield of the effect, if you're wanting, for example, a post, you want it to have engagement and you want it to have a reach. So there's a very specific thing you're trying to achieve. That you're not going to post at a time where there will be less engagement energetically, because it's all energy. Especially social media is legitimately a reflection of our own energy. So when you are utilizing astrological concept, astrological timing to support the posts that you work so hard on, is like, why the fuck not? Like you should be doing that. And there's some really easy tools, as well as, like this is for beginners. I think that really for this course, like you're gonna have to know like a general basis of astrology for it to kind of support you and for you to get the most out of it. But you'll get a lot. Like all my classes, you always get a lot. Like I always give a lot. And I just recommend this course if you are interested in growing your social media, if you have your own business, if you're an entrepreneur. And it's like, I hate it when people talk about like spirituality and material abundance. And those things are connected, don't get me wrong. But I also find the toxicity of that a lot of times. And there's nothing wrong with abundance, there's nothing wrong with wealth, but sometimes the way that it's framed just kind of annoys me. But I think that when we are aligning our businesses astrologically, there's something that happens, and when we actually align ourselves astrologically, there's something that happens where we are not as forceful. Like, for example, today, it's like I knew I should come on to this live because I knew it was going to be good because the timing, easy. Like, I'm not going to go on when I know that it's not going to be effective. And the thing is like, I'm not interested in full engagement. I'm not interested in, viral does not mean engaged. And so I noticed that when I use astrological timing, even if a post doesn't go very far, it attracts who it needs to attract. And that's the cool shit about intentionality. But if you utilize intentionality with cosmic timing, is over. It's so effective and it's so helpful. So that course is available. You can do payment plans for that. You can do payment plans for spiritual warrior training. My courses for Astrology School are gonna be coming up in the next month or two as well. I'll give more information at another time. But yeah, lots of things happening for me. I've been teaching astrology, formally teaching with the school since 2019. So it's been 3+ years, 4 years, and things are just going good. Feeling really aligned with the work. And yeah, just always calling in the folks that are really dedicated to that path of their own healing. I find that, you know, when people come to my school but they're not really engaged in their own healing, it's not aligned. It's not in alignment for me. It's not in alignment for the teachings. It's not in alignment for the student. And there's usually some form of like it's a clash. It's a clash of interests, actually. You know, sometimes people want the knowledge, but they don't want to do the work. Sometimes people want to be powerful, but they don't actually have that level of their own internal work that they've done on themselves and the maturity that occurs when we have really done our Plutonic work, our Venusian work, our Martian work, our Neptunian work. Like, when we haven't really done that work, it's like your practice, the way that you engage the materials, the way you engage the esoteric material is very superficial. It just doesn't align. And so, you know, you can learn, like, it's why the esoteric arts and our own life experience come hand in hand, because you could speak proficiently astrologically, you can speak astrological language, but if that doesn't come with lived experience, it's like the vibration of it is not strong. So anyway, I'm just reiterating that the people that are really always engaged with my courses are the ones that are like really fucking in their work, like they're in it, and that always feels very nourishing for me. It always feels very aligned, and it's just, you just get the most out of it, because that's really the place that I'm teaching from, is, you know, how truth is liberatory, how the truth can be liberatory. And, you know, I think really, like, what I'm articulating is that, like, over these past few years, like, I've really been able to find what is it that I'm doing, like what place am I teaching from, like how am I sharing this information, and like, yeah, truth as liberatory, spinning truth and allowing it to be both very, very clarifying and also liberating. But I don't think that we can really achieve liberation without being in really, really deep and sometimes harsh truth. But I'm a really intense person too, so. Anyway, thank you all so much for just allowing me to share my thoughts, share the things about my happenings and my offerings, and hope that you have gained something from this. Thank you, and bless.